So like I promised you guys earlier in the week, let's take a look at what makes this thing go. Again, we're with our 2020 Ford Transit Connect van. Ford refreshed it for 2020, and it's not too bad. So let's get a look under the hood. It's as good a place to start as any. It's 3.5 liter V6. It does have port and direct fuel injection. You can see the fuel rail for the port injectors right here, and of course your high pressure fuel pump for your direct injection. Calls for 5W20 oil. It makes 275 horsepower, 268 torque. It's hooked up to a 10R80. This thing does not shift like any other 10R80 powered vehicle I've ever driven. It's a lot like a 6R80 is really how it feels. I think it's doing a lot of skip shifting when you're driving around. That's what it feels like. This engine's actually made in Lima, Ohio, and it does have an EGR provision. You can see right back down there, you've got this EGR tube going to the exhaust manifold. For a lot of people that don't know, these are rear-wheel drive vans. They are not front-wheel drive like the Fiat/Dodge larger vans. Those are front-wheel drive. This thing is rear-wheel drive. And for 2020, for the first time, you can actually get one of these things in all-wheel drive if you want. So that's sort of a neat feature. I figure that's going to be kind of popular with a lot of the guys up north and a lot of guys who want to make one of these things into an adventure vehicle. That would be cool. This one, of course, it's a rental, it's bare bones, it's rear-wheel drive. So let's go and look at some of the things that's super disappointing. And the one that sticks out is obviously right here. This has to be the worst designed intake I have seen on any modern Ford. I mean, this is terrible. You want your air to make a 180-degree turn into the throttle body. Not only that, look how this thing is crimped down in so many places and just squished. This is just pitiful. I mean, there's got to be, it's a small engine, but it does have 11.8 to 1 compression. You could probably pick up 15 horsepower by putting a decent intake on this thing. Just run it straight over to this side and stick a air filter down in the fender here somewhere where it can get some fresh air. But this is bad. The reason I think that they're doing this is I have a feeling this is the exact same intake manifold used on the V6 base F-150, and the air intake is on this side on the F-150, so that makes perfect sense. You have the throttle body pointed this way, goes right there, but on this thing, well, we can't be bothered to create a brand new intake manifold, so let's just make this monstrosity of an air intake. Comes over here, your air box is buried back here. Filter changes are probably going to be kind of a pain because you've got the filler for the washer fluid bottle. Coming out the bottom of the air intake, you can see right here you've got a little tube that comes around and gets fresh air that is not nearly as large or impressive looking as what we've seen on Ranger, Super Duty, basically every new Ford. It's just leaves a lot to be desired there. One thing I can say is this thing has one hellacious air conditioning system on it. It works really well, but I mean, look at the size of the freaking thing. It would have to have a pretty good air conditioning system just to keep it somewhat cool. You can imagine a black one of these things in the Florida heat would be baking. You can sort of see down in here, motor mount, nice big aluminum unit. It's not too bad. And we're going to get underneath the thing in a few minutes. I want to see what the K-member looks like. I've never been under one of these. I have no idea what it's going to be. Vacuum assisted brakes, normal, you know, basically just your normal Ford stuff. Check out the arms for the wiper motor. It's got some really funky wiper arms. Check that thing out. This thing is ridiculous looking. Speaking of like ridiculous stuff, you see this, you would think this is going to run to your air intake box, but it doesn't. This is actually the air intake for the cabin air for your HVAC system. So it hooks up to the hood right here, and got a blanked out little grill on this side. It actually pulls its air from the driver's side, goes across the hood, and exits out here into that little intake scoop to go into your HVAC system. You have air, some water drains here in the hood too. So when you inevitably get a torrential downpour and that gets filled with water, those come out these drains. But that's pretty much it for under hood. It's basic bare bones, your normal Ford stuff now. 60-degree V6. Thermostat's fairly easy to get to right here. Like I said, your fuel system, it's all pretty much just what you would expect. Basic 3.5 liter, all aluminum, dual overhead cam, twin independent variable cam timing Ford V6. Should be fairly easy to change the plugs on this side. This side, that leaves something to be desired. If you're ever going to have to change the spark plugs on this thing, I think you're going to be taking the intake manifold off. It doesn't look too bad though. The bolts are right here in the top, and it's actually a two-piece manifold, it looks, so you should be able to just pop it apart. But you know what would really fit nicely in here? 7.3 liter V8. It's really not that much larger than this V6. Of course, it'd be longer, but there's still plenty of room back there. But anyways, let's hop on the creeper, get underneath this thing, and see what's going on with the front suspension. All right, I'm gonna have to splice this little section in. I missed it on an earlier video, so you get it in this one. This is another weird feature this thing has. This is your fuel door. You have to have the driver's door open to access it. You open your door up, and there you go. These things are available with a 2-liter diesel. It used to be available with a 3.2 liter diesel, and I don't know if those things were extraordinarily reliable. I know they had a lot of EGR issues. I've seen guys on YouTube having to do EGR cooler repairs. But I thought it was weird that, you know, your fuel fill is there. For one thing, it's just an odd location on a Ford, but you know, this is a European designed vehicle. But I was expecting to have the DEF fill in the same location, and I have no idea where it is on the diesels on these things. Probably under the hood. If anybody knows, post it down in the comments, because I'm not going to look it up. All right, we've made it underneath the 2020 Ford Transit 350, and it's pretty much just basic truck style engineering with a unibody frame though. So we've got sort of a K-member bolted in here, steel as you would expect. Not looking to knock a ton of weight off this, but you can see it's bolted to the unibody here. The control arms, again, just plate steel. Let's see if I can get the camera in here a little bit better with my left arm. Plate steel control arms, normal ball joints. Let's fluff you guys around here. There we go. Steel knuckle, twin piston calipers. Like I said, I've never been underneath one of these things, so it's all new to me too. Got a coilover, nice little sway bar back there. That's not bad looking. And it's pretty low to the ground. I should have put this thing on some ramps. Didn't have any handy today though. You can see it looks like we've got a transcooler over here on this side. Let's roll around to the middle of this thing. Oh yeah, a little bit more volume of space under here to check some stuff out now. So, like I said, steel knuckles. Looks like to be a lot of undercoating on this thing, so that's nice. Everything is sort of crammed in here. Looks like we got a steel drive shaft, big catalytic converter here. Another one over there with some heat shielding on it. There's our 10R80 transmission. Good size U-joint for that little V6. That's not too shabby. I was kind of expecting a Guibo there, so that's different. And check out that transmission mount. That's different than what I'm used to seeing on a F-150 or something. I don't know. Let's see if I can touch this thing. It's got some soft rubber over it. And looks like it's rubber on the inside. So not bad with an aluminum bracket. Let me see, you've got the exhaust being held up by that. Steel cross member bolted into the unibody again. and yeah, your basic 10R80, you guys have seen those all over the place. Got your trans cooler mounted right there. Looks like that'd be a pain in the ass if you ever have to service it. My guess is this thing is pretty simple to take apart. If you have a lift, you could probably just drop the K-member and the whole drivetrain just falls right out from it underneath. So that might not be too bad. It'll be scary to look at, but work pretty well. Looks like a fuel conditioning module. And speaking of fuel, here's the fuel tank. Runs pretty much the length of this thing. Of course, you knew we were going to have a two-piece drive shaft, so that's where it connects up. Let's go over here and look at this exhaust system. Got two pipes coming in, merging here in a Y. Got a flex joint, a good sized muffler. There's the motor for that step that comes out when you open up the main passenger door. Slide on back here, I've got another resonator. And one thing you guys might find surprising on this thing actually has leaf springs in the back. Again, just bolted into the unibody here. That's not the most heavy duty looking connection, but you got to remember it's a van. It's not a like a full-size truck with a truck frame. One thing I was definitely surprised to see though is that's a good old Ford 9 3/4 inch rear end. Let's see if I can figure out what gear ratio this thing has. Spare tire mounted in here. Like I said, this one doesn't have a hitch, but you can definitely see where one would be bolted in here. And of course your HVAC lines that run the length of the vehicle come up back here to a condenser. But like I said, got a nice big sway bar in the back. That's surprising, but you know, it's a van, so they want to keep it from rolling too much. Single piston calipers in the rear. And like we said, the old standby Ford 9 3/4 inch rear end, same thing that they've been putting in F-150s for forever. Nice jounce bumper, so if you go jumping your van, you won't break anything. Check out all of that sound deadening material they put on the inside of the wheel well. It's actually a pretty quiet ride, so it's not too bad. There you go, a rubber piece between the two springs, just to cushion things out a little bit. Your shackle back here. It's a fairly thick main spring. I do not see a tag on this axle. I was kind of hoping I could figure out what the gear ratio is. At like 76 miles an hour, it's turning over around 2,000 RPMs. So I'm guessing it's probably 355, 373, something like that. I mean, a 10R80 in 10th gear, it should be, I mean, let's assume it was getting into 10th gear, who knows? I would think it would be a much lower RPM than what it was actually turning. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's fairly basic. It's a van. What do you expect? See the connection here for those HVAC lines. It's nice that most of this stuff is just rubber in case anything ever goes wrong with it. It'll be easy to replace. Just about any shop could handle it. And since it's not all one massive run from front to back, you can just replace whatever piece would get damaged. I know that's a huge issue with the Ford Excursions. They basically have lines that run the entire length of the vehicle that are one solid piece, and it's a huge pain in the ass if you ever have to replace them. So that's a nice engineering thought. You can see some of the structure to stiffen this thing up in here. It's gusseted with some brackets and all the way through. Yeah, check out all the little frame sections here. So you can tell if the thing is made to handle some payload. But that's what I would expect from a 350, 3500, well 350 version of this van. And I hear it making some weird electronic noises. That's nice. You can see this is where the seats are bolted in on the thing. They put these blind nuts in from the factory. But I think we got a pretty good idea of what's going on underneath these things. Pretty much just standard van stuff. Like I said, this is sort of an unexpected review, but made the best of what we've got. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you would, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and head over to SVT Performance. Check out all your latest news, reviews, and information on your favorite Ford performance vehicles, and occasionally a rental van.